right, good morning, everybody. We are live at FDIC here Friday, FDIC 2025. I'm Pete Procula with Fire Engineering and FDIC, and we're here today with Cres Cor, Health and Safety. I got Greg Baggott, Chief Clint Greenwood here from Oklahoma City, and we're here to talk a little bit about Cres Cor and what they have to offer here at the show. But before we get started, we're here in this lovely booth, so if you're in the ICC, come down and check us out. But this podcast is brought to you by Firehouse Subs, the firefighter-founded hot sub chain with a passion for hearty and flavorful food, heartfelt service, and public safety. Ready for your next mission? Firehouse Subs is offering firefighters the opportunity to continue serving after service now as restaurant owners. Learn more about them at firehousesubsfranchising.com. So thank you, Firehouse Subs. But let's turn to talk about Cres Cor and how they got into with the fire service. I know it's an older company, but Greg, take us away. Let us know what's going on.
Thanks, Pete.
Yep.
So Cres Cor is a third-generation family business started by my grandfather in 1936, based out of Cleveland, Ohio. And we service the commercial food service industry. And a number of years ago, we tried to get into some other markets, exploring some things in medical. And then 2020 happened, the pandemic, and there was an N95 shortage, the masks that were out there. And we found that our cabinets that we make, which use heat and humidity, do a great job of decontaminating those N95 masks. And they do it just using heat and humidity. There's no chemicals involved, and it was a safe 15-minute cycle to get these masks clean. We went down the path trying to get emergency use authorization through the FDA, got close to the goal line with it, but then the shortage ended, the supply chain caught up, so we had to shift gears and we pivoted, and we found that the emergency services and fire services specifically had a need for decontamination. So we started coming to the FDIC show back in 2021 and ended up meeting Chief when he was with Oklahoma City, had a conversation with him, and they were a big supporter early on, bought a bunch of units from us and outfitted their entire operation, and away we went.
Chief, you were talking a little bit earlier about your meeting with Greg initially and how things went there.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting deal. And just like everybody else that's here at FDIC, this place is huge, and you do a lot of walking, and after a while you get pretty tired. Yeah. I had several of my guys that had made it to the Cres Guard booth and said, Chief, you need to come take a look at this. I kind of looked at them like, yeah, okay, all right, tired, you know how your feet feel. Yeah. And so I went over, and I met Greg and a couple of other guys, and I'd be honest, I wasn't up for it. Talked to him a little bit, left, thought about it, come back like the next day, and I said, okay, I got questions. And I'll be honest, for me, with my background, I have background in hazmat for over 30 years with the Oklahoma City. I'm all about the science, I'm about the numbers. And I came back ready, and I was going to kind of try to stump them.
Quiz them.
I was quizzing them. I was going to try to stump them, and there wasn't any. At one point, we were there, had our phones out, and we were Googling the information and looking at stuff and going together. And before I knew it, I said, you know what, if we could do this or if we could do that, does it do this? And we were finding out and learning things about that unit, that first unit, the heat and moisture unit that Cres Guard's got now. It's a pretty amazing piece of equipment. I was sold. I went back to my department, and I went to my fire chief, and of course, we're all in the middle of COVID, and everybody knows what that was like. And we started discussing, and he looked at me and he goes, well, how much is it going to cost? And I told him, and he said, don't have it in the budget. And I said, okay. I said, Chief, this is something we need. I need to be proactive at this. That's one of the hardest things in the fire service to do is be proactive. We're always reactive to everything. We already have this on top of us. We need to think about the next thing and the next big thing that's going to happen. And it's going to happen. We know it is. That's why we're always prepared. So we got to talking, and I was fortunate enough to actually find grant monies that was able to help purchase this. And we were able to move forward with it. So we ended up putting about 45 of them in Oklahoma City.
So, and it's not just COVID. I mean, COVID is there, but we know that there's other hazards from biocontamination that first responders, firefighters are facing. So what else is, what's the next thing?
It's, well, you know, the one thing that most firefighters find, it's the thing that you can't see that scares the you-know-what out of us. And, you know, we talk about the biological side, but then also something that we found out quite by accident, I'll be honest, was that when we start thinking about the vector-borne, so we start talking about bed bugs. Oh, my gosh, bed bugs is a big deal. It doesn't matter where you're at. I've been at the show and talking to firefighters from around the world now, and I mentioned bed bugs, and they all just kind of go, yeah. Well, one of the things that we found out was bed bugs, fleas, ticks, lice. We were looking those up, that it actually kills those. You go to an emergency call, EMS call, you drop your jump kit down on the floor, and the next thing you know, you go back to the fire station and goes, what's all those things on us? Well, we found out, again, quite by accident, that we could take and put these pieces of equipment into the heat moisture disinfectant decontamination cabinet, and it kills them. It removes them. So we
And so
started
what do you put in the cabinets? And you putting?
So yeah, so when to follow up on what Chief said, you know, we went in with a cabinet that uses heat and moisture, right? And that's the chamber takes a 15-minute cycle and kills to a 6-log reduction, so 99.999%. And we started listening to the firemen, and we had no idea. We had COVID, we had flu, we had MRSA on our mind. We did not have lice and ticks and bed bugs, and we started listening to the firemen coming into our booth and talking about that. And so we said, well, you know, we're putting our jump bags on the floor, and we're getting all this stuff on it. We never wash our coats. We don't wash our helmets. We don't wash the gloves. So yeah, can we put that into your cabinet? Absolutely. So we could do that. And then they said, well, what about the electronics? You know, the cell phones, the iPads, the communications, the walkie-talkies. Can we put that in there? So maybe not in the humidified version, but let's go to the R&D and try to figure out a unit for that. So we came back and we came out with a heat and UV light cabinet that either a 15 or a 30-minute cycle will be safe for electronics, wouldn't fry out the electronics, but the heat gets everything, and then the UVC light kicks in, and it'll kill anything it sees. So it does a great job of decontaminating that way. So that was things that we learned just from coming to the show, that not only can these cabinets do other things that we intended, but hey, there's a need to decon other things that we didn't even think of.
And here's something else to take into consideration on these. They don't use chemicals. There is no chemicals whatsoever. We are not adding anything other than water on the humidity heat this one. And we're looking at 185 degrees, 65% humidity on that cabinet. The cabinet that uses UVC, it's 120 degrees. And you can actually use that. You don't have to use both at the same time, because we know a lot of electronics don't like heat. Batteries don't like the heat, you know, that we're looking at there. So that's what's nice about having these two different types of cabinets. It goes in and it takes care of a lot of things. One of the things that I try to get people to understand is that when we're talking about this type of situation, it's part of a system. And this is one big part of the system that we've got there. You know, I steal from Gordon Graham, you know, it's, you got to have a system, you got to have a system. And he's right. When it comes to, if we want to talk about clean station, clean cab, not taking this stuff home with you, this is one of those key components. For example, you know, if you don't have that ability to, say, wash your gear at the station, or I say gear, I mean your uniforms, we've got guys taking their sheets, bedding, uniforms, boots, whatever, they put it in that cabinet for 15 minutes before they go home. They know they're not taking anything home. All bugs. I don't care if they're the creepy crawly ones or the ones that you breathe in that makes you sick. That way we're not taking that home to our families.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit more about some of the technologies that are out there, some of the gaps that you're experiencing or you've identified out there?
Yeah, so I think the history of, and Chief could probably talk more about that, was there's kind of a badge of honor with firemen that the dirtier the uniform, the harder they work, right? And it's kind of a badge of honor that they've been through the wars, they've been experienced all this.
Salty look.
Salty
right?
firefighters.
Yeah. So, and we have found through this process, that's kind of turning. I think especially the younger firemen, they're more concerned about the health and longevity and their safety going forward. So, are there ways to protect them better? And we feel our cabinets do that by taking some of these hidden problems and eliminating them or reducing their impact. And to Clint's point with bringing that stuff home to their families, when we were at the show, we saw a lot of wives that were walking around with their husbands, and they were saying, "Hey, can you throw your boots in there, and so you don't bring that, or your backpack?" And the wives were very interested in this, and so. It's a niche market that we're trying to develop more in, and I think more and more firehouses are getting there. More and more firehouses have extractors, which are an important facet, and we work in tandem with that. Drying racks, those are important too. But I think decon is becoming more and more important in firehouses, and I'm sure Clint would agree with that.
Oh, yes, I most definitely agree. And again, like I said, it seems like we're always learning more and more about this. I like to say one interesting thing about the cabinets is they're not a one-trick pony. There's more than one thing that they do, because when we first introduced it, again, it was, viruses, bacteria, you name it, something like that. Now we're finding out all the vector-borne stuff. Another deal that we look at and keep in mind is that we started reaching out, our law enforcement brothers and sisters. We went and we did the testing to make sure the equipment that they carry can be put in there. And yes, it does, most definitely. So again, looking at what these cabinets do, I think it also gives a little bit of peace of mind, because for firefighters, it's what you can't see is what scares them. Again, falling back on the hazmat, if you go back to the 9 hazard classes, for example, and you ask firefighters, one of the things that scares them the most, it's radiation. I can't see it, I can't smell it, I can't taste it. How do I know it's there? Well, now we go back to viruses, bacteria, you name it, that kind of stuff. It's the same thing. So having something like this fills in that little bit of a gap that we've got to take care of that. And the biggest thing for me is, like what we just said, is I don't want to take this home to my family. That's a big deal. It's bad enough if we make it to the station, but at the station we have a way of eradicating the problem, and that way we make sure we do not take it to our families.
Yeah, and I mean, with this renewed, there's a focus on cancer now and all those sort of carcinogens. It seems like this has identified yet another angle, of contamination, and and it's also what we like about it is an FDIC success story, because you guys kind of met there, and it's been like a feedback loop, between the industry and the fire service. So. So what's on the horizon? What, in terms of new developments, advancements? What more are you looking at?
Well, it's really getting the word out about it. I think one of the messages that we're trying to get across is the new fire stations that are being built. Get a decon room in and have us be a part of it in the design stage to help that out. The newer, we just launched the UVC cabinet, so that is top of mind to push out here. This is the first time it's been at FDIC and available for sale. So that's really the push this year is to get these two products out, get the awareness up, and do what we can to protect the firefighters.
And so where are you on the floor? If people are, they're milling around here, you can see a bunch of people. If they want to come visit you at FDIC, where are you at?
Yeah, we're right by the front door in the main hallway.
Okay.
I think the booth is...
is 13060.
Yep.
That's right. Yep, we got that here. So what else in terms of how's the overall experience been with FDIC thus far? It's been good?
For me, it's been interesting that for so many years coming to FDIC, I was on the other side of the table. I was the student. I come there. I always told everybody that I came to FDIC, the main reason was to recharge my batteries. When I left FDIC, I left with the passion that I needed. I was around a lot of like-thinking persons, but then also people that maybe we didn't think alike, and I was open to a whole lot of new things. Now that I'm on the other side of the table and I've been helping Greg, it's been a little different. It's been a challenge, but it seems like everybody that comes to the booth is looking for that knowledge. They're hungry for that knowledge, and so many of them out there are looking for that way of figuring out how they can stop the problem.
It's like a different type of educational system.
Yes, it is
So,
most definitely.
Yeah. Greg, anything?
Yeah, I've spent a lot of time walking around the show and trying to learn more about it and understand it better, and talk to some people that are a little bit more into our decon space, and they're having success too, and I see it as a growing trend that would be an essential piece for firehouses going forward.
All right. Well, I think we're kind of at the end here. Any final words of wisdom that you want to pass on to anybody here?
I would just kind of reiterate what I said earlier. The things that we do to be proactive at is extremely difficult. It is. And again, I did 35 years on the job. I'm still going farther and hopefully it's going strong. It's so easy to be reactive, but try to find a way to be proactive. Find out the little cracks that are out there that you can fill in so that you can better protect your personnel. Because that's the number one thing, is getting everybody home.
Yeah, absolutely. Our mission is to keep you guys safe, the fire services safe, and anything we can do. We want to learn. We want to learn how we can help, what we can do to achieve that mission. So that's our goal here.
All right. Well, and so it's booth 13060. Visit Cres Cor Health
Yep.
and Safety over here. And if folks if they're remote watching, what's you got a website, something they can visit?
Yeah, it's crescorhns.com.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody watching here, and if you're out there at FDIC, hope you stop by Cres Cor and enjoy the rest of your show. So, catch you next time.